everyone. I'm here today with Damian Hall, and we're going to discuss the amazing Barkley Marathons and everything surrounding it. How are you? How are you feeling?
Hello. Pretty good, thanks. Nearly all my scratches have gone, which I feel a bit sad about. I've still got a few scabs on my legs. I don't think the viewers need to see them necessarily, but yeah, you kind of feel a bit sad, like like a music festival where you don't want to cut off the sort of wristband. And what are we talking to? Yeah, only about it's only a week and a half since, but yeah, no, still yeah, it's still going through my head, but yeah, recovery's all right. Pretty good, thanks.
Amazing. Well, we don't need to kind of go into the background of you because I feel like you're a very well-known runner. So I'm just going to hop straight into it and just kind of talk about your year and how you found the Barclays this year. But you came off the spine race coming second, which congratulations. How quick was that turnaround and recovery period before you going out to Tennessee?
So I think I had I'm pretty sure it's 7 weeks, and I call it the sparkly double. The year before I only had 6 weeks. And yeah, I wouldn't encourage this necessarily, and I certainly wouldn't sort of stack my whole year up like this. I've got a big gap now, a big restful time. But the previous year I'd felt pretty good, so I wasn't too worried adding in, I had one extra week this year. Um, and yeah, so I mean, I'm coached by David Roach. After the spine, yeah, pretty much a week off, and then a week of not very much mileage at all, and sort of checking in regularly how you're feeling. And you're just trying to sleep as much as you can. Really, that's the big thing, and making sure you, and I suppose eat plenty. But I must admit, this year, yeah, 3 or 4 weeks didn't feel that special. And then there were 2 or 3 weeks where I felt really good, which was a relief. And I do, some of it's just how do you feel, but I do track sort of heart rate variability quite a lot, daily, and that was mirroring quite well on my Sunto. It felt quite accurate to how I was feeling. Yeah, so 3 or 4 weeks, and then I felt really good, gotten some good training, um, felt yeah, felt ready.
Amazing. So how does a race like the Barclays differ from, the Spine or Tour de Géants or Marathon des Sables? How does it complete? How is it different?
Yeah, if great question. It's well, I guess, I mean, one of the fun aspects, I suppose, around it is all the uncertainty of, like, you don't know when it's going to start. I mean, we know the date, but you don't know when it's going to start. You don't know what the route will be until the day, the afternoon before. You know, those sort of uncertainties are pretty big, really, when you think about most races where the routes aren't available on a GPX file. You can go through, on any mapping software. Exactly what's ahead, mandatory kit. That's another nice thing about the Barkley. No mandatory kit. They trust you to, sort out, pick the right kit to suit you, which is actually really refreshing. It actually feels like, oh, I'm being treated like a grown-up. Um, so that's really different, the uncertainty. But to me, that's part of the charm and part of the fun of it. Um, and then also when you're out there, obviously there's the book thing, but yeah, it's self-navigating, and it's nearly all off trail. So um, you could in a way compare it to a fell race a bit, in that you're not following trails hardly at all. Um, but it's also incredibly steep. It's you. I remember when Jasmine had done it once, and I was interested in doing it, and she said, "You're either hiking steeply uphill or you're sliding downhill. It's those two things. That's what it is." So yeah, there are quite a few ways in which it's different. Like the Tour de Géant has loads of vert. You're out there for days, but you're following good trails up and down, often switchbacks as well. So they're not actually it has its steep moments, but most of the time it's not actually steep. And at the Barkley, it's really steep. And also what you find, I think, compared to the spine, is the mental fatigue, because you're navigating. The mental fatigue is accelerated, so you get more mentally tired quickly. I find at the spine and the Tour, I can be kind of half awake or almost half human, but you can just plod on, you just carry on. And at the Barkley, if you do that, which is what happens to me, really, you go off route and you're lost. So it's, yeah, the mental sort of clarity you need. That's what I'm struggling with, really, to be honest.
So this was your second attempt this year, wasn't it? At the Barkley Marathons. Did you feel different entering this year as a quote unquote veteran of the race now?
Yeah, it is really helpful to have. So you can't recce. Well, you can recce about 15 to 20% of the course. So you're only allowed to recce the candy ass trails, as Laz calls them. The only other chance you get to be on the route is on race day. So yeah, first time. So that's why I'm super impressed by people like Ihor who finished first time. But he did a lot of homework, did everything he could, more course knowledge. But of course, then they took a load of the course out and put in a whole new bit. So and that was including one of the bits I'd been researching a lot, which I'd found a bit tricky, was no longer there, and a whole new bit, which was new for everyone. So that uncertainty comes in again. But yeah, I mean, in theory, as with almost any race, you should be better prepared the second time around. So yeah, I did feel better prepared, but yeah, my outcome wasn't much better.
So I was speaking to Ihor and he said, the first few loops you were traveling in groups. How was it? How was the camaraderie in those first loops?
Well, I would actually say a lot of Loop One was quite stressful because John confirmed that. I mean, I'd only had the one Barkley before, but normally book one, there's quite a big group of people still.
Mm.
But what we found on this first loop was nearly all loop. There was about 15 people, or partly there were quite a lot of new books this year, so that if we couldn't find it straight away, that allowed a group to rejoin. And it doesn't really feel like a race, because really it's you against the course. Like, you're not too bothered about beating other people. But I must admit the books were quite stressful because my inner Britishness makes me want to go right after you, after you, after you. But if you do that, and you're one of the first to the book as well, and you do that to everyone, you may lose at least 5 minutes, and then you've kind of been scraped, or so yeah, I didn't like the stress of that. There's sometimes be three people's hands in the book at the same time tearing out the pages. I mean, no one came to. I don't think I saw any cross words or anyone come to blows, but it was stressful. So yeah, me and John agreed we didn't much like that, and he identified one of the hills to make a push on. So we did, and then yeah, I think roughly 6 of us finished the first loop together, and yeah, me, Ihor, Jasmine was with us, and John. But that was the only time in my 2 Barclays that it's felt almost like a race, where you're kind of almost trying to get rid of people in the nicest possible way. I hope no one takes offense, but it was it was a bit stressful.
So what mindset do you think you need to have? You've mentioned you're not really racing each other, so there's not that competitiveness. But what mindset do you think is needed to take on such a strenuous route?
Oof. I mean, we'll go, down the wrong spur off, and waste a lot of time. Suddenly 20 minutes has gone, and that was crucial. And look at Jasmine, finished with less than 2 minutes. So one more little mistake from her or the people she was with, which was sometimes me. And in fact, I was with her and I did do a little mistake. Actually, it would probably only cost us a few minutes, but I forget which loop 3, probably in the dark. Yeah, I led her slightly off the route, and then you think back and think, well, that 2, 3, 4 minutes, crucial. So yeah, so you've got to be mentally alert, and then you've got to forgive yourself for mistakes, because they are going to happen. And I don't think John will mind me saying, he was leading a lot of the nav because he knows it so well, but he was still making mistakes. But he's very quick at realizing and correcting them, and that was the big difference. So yeah, but that mental alertness you need for basically 60 hours is hard.
So what was the route like? Obviously, you can't tell us in full what the route is, but you've mentioned you've got scratches on your legs, you've got real steep verges. Just tell us a little bit about that experience, because I'm sure in England we're used to a lovely trail and we follow the trail and everything's nice.
So the best way to understand the terrain is kind of steep brown woods, and underfoot it's quite loose. So it's usually a carpet of leaves, and underneath that, most of the time, is reasonably predictable, but sometimes not. And there are sometimes rocks, and yeah, obviously sawbriars and high walls, they call them, sort of natural cliffs. But really, it's like Laz wants to send you up something steep, down the other side to get a book, up something steep, down the other side to get a book, or maybe at the top you get a book, but you'll still go down steep something else. So they think it has about 14,000 foot of per loop, which it feels like. And if it does, that's apparently 2 Everests or 2 UTMBs. So yeah, lots of vert and nearly all off trail. It's kind of, yeah, incredibly hard work, but actually quite a lot of fun as well.
So you began the loop with a kind of decorated list of athletes, including, Jasmine and John Kelly. How did it feel beginning the fifth loop with so many people?
Yeah, it was very exciting. And I mean, you do have to start thinking about yourself on loop 5. Before that, you can work as a team, and we had. And that fourth loop was mostly, I think, me, John Kelly, and Ihor various. Um, I forget now whether Jasmine was with us early on or not. But until then, Jasmine had been around a lot. Um, but yeah, loop 5, really, you got to think about yourself. You're on your own. Uh, that said, it didn't really occur to me that, like, Jasmine was probably only 5 or 10 minutes behind me. I wouldn't have known when I left camp. I wouldn't have known who would have followed me out. Um, and I think some people did work together a little bit on that fifth loop. But it really didn't. And I did see Jared and I still don't know how to say his name properly, but
Three?
Greg
Yeah.
Hamilton. I did see them at one of the books going the other way. And I mean, you're all exhausted by then. You know, it's a quick hello and some nice words, but you don't really stop for a chat. But yeah, I do regret now. Like, I mean, well, yeah, I do regret almost like if I'd realised Jasmine was 5 or 10 minutes behind, I might have waited, but I might have cocked up and led her off course. So that would have yeah, changed the course of history. So we don't want that. But yeah, you've got to start operating on your own basically, and it's that's hard because you're already very, very tired.
Yeah, how much sleep did you get over those 60 hours?
None.
None.
Well, not until I knew my race was over, and then what I find is kind of the adrenaline has kind of gone. The adrenaline that was keeping you awake, and it was like, well, it doesn't really matter whether I have a sleep or not. So it was, and the sun was just warming the day, and I just felt very sleepy suddenly, and I thought it doesn't really matter. So I lay down on one of the big climbs called the Meat Grinder, and I had a snooze, and I still don't know whether that was 10 minutes or 2 hours because your watch doesn't tell you the time of day, and also you've sort of, I mean, it didn't really matter too much anymore what my watch said, so I wasn't really paying attention. But yeah, while I was actually racing, I had no sleep. There was no time. I don't think Jasmine did. John managed to. He's quite good at power naps on the trail, and I think he did sleep at camp as well. Um, but yeah, that's another of the elements is, yeah, battling the sleep deprivation.
Do you hallucinate? Ihor was saying that he doesn't, and he feels quite jealous of those who can.
Yeah, almost exactly the same as Jasmine. Actually, I was seeing occasional people up ahead and occasional animals. Definitely think I saw a couple of dogs. Now the whole theme this year was sort of dogs. A lot of the books had dog titles, and the theme was yeah, if they did this to dogs, they'd throw. If we did this to dogs, they'd throw us in jail. But I think I reached down to stroke a little dog's head at one point and realized, yeah, it wasn't really a dog. So no, so that was about as wild as they get. I mean, I've had wilder ones at other events, Tour de Gion. I remember, yeah, sort of inflatable. There was a series of inflatables, so an inflatable shark, an inflatable penguin, and even the Michelin Man. So I have no idea what in my head made me think there were inflatables around, but yeah, these were a bit more mundane. But it's just kind of annoying, to be honest. It's when they start happening, it's just almost like, oh, leave me alone, you know. Um, yeah, and it means you need to sleep, really. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I
So
did.
you so you did DNF on the fifth loop. What happened? How come you did not finish?
So yeah, the first climb went well in the first book, and then you need to descend off trail through some woods down a steep mountainside to a bearing down to a river to find a book down there. And I mean, the reality is I didn't follow that bearing closely enough, and maybe I was a bit casual because I thought, well, there is, you know, there's the river was working at the catching feature, so I wasn't too concerned because I thought, well, I just hit the river and go south, and that should be all right. but when I got down there, it wasn't it wasn't as I was expecting. And there is a chance also I didn't leave the mountaintop at exactly the right point. Really, you need this specific point. Um, I'm not sure now, chatting to others, whether I left at exactly the right point. But and interestingly, yeah, in my defence, two other very good navigators made the same mistake this year, and two of the finishers have made that same mistake in previous years. But yeah, ended up down the bottom, and basically I suppose a small mistake became a big mistake because I tried to relocate myself, and I was actually off the map. I mean, a lot of the map is you do cut the map quite small. Actually, got the map right here, but I can't show you. But
Time.
yeah, you're at the edge of the map anyway, so I was off the map. So I when it got daylight, I found the book, and but I basically realised not long after that that I didn't have time to do the rest of the loop, which is yeah crushing. And yeah, the life sort of the energy goes out of you, and you suddenly feel all the the sore bits and the painful bits that you were ignoring. They suddenly are like you know shouting louder, shall we say? Um, and I just thought, well, also Laz does want you to come back in if you're not going to do it, if you're not going to complete it on time. But I did. I mean, I was a little bit naughty. I stayed out for quite a few hours more to I suppose, yeah, just trace those bits of the course, get to know it a bit better, and then yeah, had a snooze somewhere in there, and then just went back to camp, feeling pretty deflated.
But you did make it back in time to, we saw people come in. So how did it feel witnessing Jasmine make that final turn down?
Oh yeah, I think I've already been quoted as saying it was the greatest sporting moment I've seen live, and yeah, I'll happily stick with that. So I got in maybe an hour before her, and then I saw all the other finishers except John and Ihor um, come in, and that was yeah, you are thrilled for them, and you sort of kind of try and bottle it and put it away, and kind of like that's what it feels like, that that's what you're trying to do. But then it was like, yeah, there were 15 minutes to go, and actually, including uh, Jasmine's husband and other people, they didn't think there was enough time basically, because the only timing marker we had was when she'd gone through the fire tower, and she'd basically have to do that last loop in the same speed as she did the first loop to finish. And there are huge differences. Usually with most finishers, from the first to the fifth. And so yeah, it got down to 10 minutes, and there's probably a group of about 30 people, maybe 40 in the whole of camp. 10 minutes to go, and then we're sort of saying, yeah, it's still, hey, this will still be amazing. If it's a bit over, that's still incredible. And then 5 minutes, and then you're like, oh, it's not going to happen, is it? So I think yeah, I don't want to say I'd given up hope, but I was getting towards that. I was getting towards that sort of resignation. And then what was amazing is John's son had a red top on like Jasmine, and he was sort of playing down the end of the road. Sorry, there were no cars at that time, but okay, so it sounds like irresponsible parenting. And someone shouted runner, and we all were, wow, where? And it was just John's son running around the corner, and everyone felt really deflated, really, oh. But then he still seemed to be waving his arms around and making a fuss, and it was like, is he playing? Is he trying to tell us something? And it turns out he was, because she came around the corner. I think Conrad, her husband, was running with her, maybe one or two others. And you went, oh my God. And then you're looking, you're staring at your watch going, ooh. And I think at that point, there's probably 3 minutes. And then you're trying to calculate has she got, because it's actually it's a worse slope than it looks. And at the end of 60 hours of running, and she would have done, 120 miles and up Everest a couple of times. You know, it's not an easy run. I remember running it with John Kelly at the end of loop 2, and we were like, oh, this is unpleasant. So yeah, really trying to calculate, has she got enough time? And I kind of ran down the side towards her, but she wasn't looking around her at all. She was just staring ahead, and just, almost looked unhuman almost in her determination. And she did it, yeah, as we know, with, I think is it 99 seconds, or around 90 seconds, and collapsed over the gate, and it was just amazing, just the best thing I've ever seen, I think, in sporting terms. So not only do you have this amazing sort of gender angle, this amazing women in sport angle, but the most dramatic finish, regardless of that, the most dramatic finish ever as well to the Barkley Marathons. So you've got at least two things going at the same time. Plus, she's a friend of mine and I coach her, and I know the work she's put in. I know how much it means. Most people know she's been going for 3 years. And for me and her especially, like taking a flight is not something we do lightly. So I know it. The sort of emotional, ethical cost that she's weighed up as well. And away from her, her kids are younger than mine, so to be away from them is hard. Yeah, honestly, I spent I can just about talk about it now without crying, but for the last week or so, whenever I've gone through it in my head or I wrote my blog, yeah, I've sort of got sweaty eyes from thinking about it. It was I feel very, very lucky to have been there.
I've obviously it hit the mainstream media quite hard, and I was reading the comments of people who were, uneducated within it, and many people I think aren't well versed in understanding what a momentous occasion this was. What do you think you have to say around that?
Um, I haven't really noticed any of that. Although someone pointed out some article in the Financial Times or something that is causing a stir. But I mean, I think you just look at the stats. You just look at the stats of how many finishes there have been at the Barkley Marathons. And I must admit, when you try and explain the race to some people, they go, "What? It takes you how many hours to do a marathon?" um, and our quickest marathon out there is usually 8.5 hours. And then it's taking us 12, 13, 14 hours. But just look at the stats. Some of the very toughest athletes, well-prepared athletes in the world have gone there. And since 1986, there have been 20 finishes and only one female. And that's kind of all you need to know. That's how tough it is. So I don't really care if some people don't get it. I think the people who get it, they get what a special thing this is.
Mm. So why do you think there's such an excitement around the Barkley Marathons?
I mean, some of it must be because when I was first getting into the sport, when I was asking people about races, I think I asked a friend, well, yeah, but what is the toughest? Which one is it? Because you hear about UTMB and maybe the Tour de Gion, and the Spine race was a new thing then. But what is the toughest? And that is what people thought was the toughest. So it's partly that, but then it's also the mystery around it, isn't it? And there are which just makes it more fascinating. And yeah, the lack of information coming out just means that any bit of information coming out is just so much more powerful. So I think it's those two things mostly. It's really tough and it's mysterious. Yeah, I guess it's those two things.
So do you feel like you have unfinished business there now? Are you hoping to return for a third time lucky?
Yes, I don't want to sort of go on about it too much because, as we know, yeah, you're sort of not meant, if you are in, and
Mhm.
I certainly don't know that for now. You're not meant to talk about it too much, but yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, within half an hour of not finishing this year, I had already used the phrase next time. Yeah, it took Jasmine 3 times, it took John 3 times. Although I must say I've had 2 very good weather years, and the chance of getting a third good weather year, who knows? But yes, I would definitely like to try again. Doesn't mean I can definitely get in. Let's see, but yeah, it's too tantalizing for me, too frustrating not to try one more time.
So you are a co-founder of the Green Runners, which you've mentioned with the ethics of flying. Do you hope being such a prolific athlete on such a platform will inspire more people to think about their own sustainability around trail running?
Yes, I mean, what's been amazing is actually from Jasmine's extraordinary run, we've had more donations, we've had more signups, a big bump on social media, um, especially in places like America, actually. So really, I mean, there are kind of two separate debates. There's your individual footprint, and then there's the sort of collective action, getting together and pushing for change. And certainly that's what excites me more. So yeah, I mean, please, anyone watching who's curious, come and join the Green Runners. We're really not, as me and Jasmine have shown, we're not perfect. We're not saying you should never fly, you should never eat meat, you should never buy any new kit. That isn't our message. We want all the people really, and together we can have real influence. I mean, we showed that, I think, last summer with sort of trying to hold UTMB to account for having a high carbon sponsor, and we'll continue to sort of campaign on those things. But I think ultimately, yeah, we got the climate relay, running out of time relay, coming up again this summer. I think it's going to start in June, from Big Ben to from Ben Nevis to Big Ben, which got a lot of coverage last year. A lot of people joined in, and it, honestly, I would almost say, if you do nothing else, because I appreciate some people are kind of a bit anxious or reluctant to sort of kind of step forward. And this issue is complicated and occasionally divisive, although I don't know why it should be. But yeah, there's a huge marathon relay, the running relay that anyone can join in on, in the summer, which is really great fun actually. And to me, that's the best way to, if you can just go for a run and that be somehow environmental activism, then I mean that's the easiest and best way to do things, I think. So yeah, I would say look that up. It's called the Running Out of Time relay, or please come and join the Green Runners.
I'll put both of the links down in the description box. So if anybody's
Oh,
really interested, I'll put it in our video.
thank you.
You're very welcome. So what do you have for the rest of the year then?
Hopefully chilling and not looking at any books, because they give me flashbacks. Yeah, the big one is Tour de Gion in September. I'm gonna do that for a third year. Just love the scenery out there, love being out there. It's quite a nice social event as well, because people are often out there for a few days before or a few days afterwards. So it's lots of pizza and pasta being eaten. So yeah, really excited for that. I guess I probably would do a B race or two in the summer. Maybe I'll just see how I feel, because like you say, we're talking on April the 1st. I've already done two huge races. It's time to chill for a bit really, or just I'll just be a mess, or even more of a mess than I am.
How is your family? What have your children said about all your both the spine and now the Barclays?
Um, Not loads. I mean, if I'm honest, that's what's so great when you have a great race or you have a rubbish race. You come home, your kids treat you exactly the same, to be honest, which is really nice, really grounding. To them, it doesn't really matter. They just know you're away for a week and now you're home. I mean, my son did say, "Oh, does that mean he'll have to go and do the Barkley again?" When he sort of realised I hadn't completed it. But other than that, yeah, they're not super interested, if I'm honest. Which is, I think it's good. I think it's healthy.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much. I hope you have a lovely rest of your Easter, as it's Easter Monday. And just thank you very much for coming on with me today.
Thank you, Emily, and yeah, see you out there somewhere.
See you later.